In the sense of homesickness, sounds and circumstances that in the main are happy memories, with a smattering of small misfortunes. I remember the absolute stillness in a cathedral-like spruce bluff, carpeted with soft needles. Rabbit trails in the snow of a moonlit meadow. Mother comforting me after my first bee sting. The exquisite joy on finding 3 small yellow celluloid ducks beside my birthday breakfast plate. Yeah, we always used to have something like that on our birthday. The scent of the lilacs beside our house. We had lovely lilacs there. And the snap of the seed pods on the caragana hedge. Riding in the buggy beside Mother and listening to the meadowlark on the top of a telephone pole. The willow whistles and little wooden jumping jacks that my brother used to carve for me. Discovering the Milky Way and the Big Dipper, and knowing that everything in that space above was made by God. Aiming a flashlight at the Christmas tree in the dark parlor to make the tinsel sparkle on Christmas Eve. Finding an Ella doll under the tree the next morning. There was one, the dolls used to be shown in the catalog, different ones, and they had names for a lot of them. And one of these pretty little girlish dolls was called Ella, and I loved that one particularly. So that's why I say here, the joy of finding an Ella doll. Watching fascinated as Father lathered his beard and stropped his straight razor on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. The unforgettable taste of sun-sweet wild strawberry. The awful feeling when the coyote chorus abruptly ended and you knew that their quarry had been killed. Running for my life across the farmyard to the safety of the barn or a parent's arms, with a mean gander in hot and hissing pursuit. Musical evenings when everyone sang or played an instrument, and they did. There was a lot of music in our house, just from the different little whatever instruments we happened to have. A public school teacher I adored. A high school teacher I would rather forget. The scent of wild roses. And in later reminiscences, I remember dating, dancing on New Year's Eve in the Parliament buildings in Edmonton. That's what we did, we could do and did a couple of years. You could just go and dance in the Parliament buildings or down in the flats, and you go down there and you could go in one of the buildings and they had music in there and you could go and dance. The skaters' waltz on the 12th Street rink. Oh yes, we loved to skate. Walking across the high-level bridge. That was a big bridge across the Saskatchewan River, and you could walk across it if you were brave enough or strong enough, or anyway, it was a high-level bridge because it was a high one. Walking across the high-level bridge with an RCAF boy. Then my first job, the coach class holiday train trips to Vancouver with packed lunches, cribbage games, and meeting new friends in the space between the coaches, where young people went to smoke and meet new friends. Jukeboxes playing, "Oh, Johnny, oh, Johnny, oh, Johnny, oh, Johnny, heavens above, do, 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 do. Anyway, the magic of Bing Crosby singing White Christmas
oh, yes.
on a clear, frosty night. And street cars. Those are all the things that I remember. Life didn't stand still, and we were anxious to leave our childhood behind us. And while we rushed from teddy bears, lipstick, and nylons to budding careers, society sped from horsepower to nuclear power. Sometimes I feel that this electronic age has whirled by like a narrowly missed subway train, leaving me gaping at its disappearing rear car. Could I have run a little faster and hopped aboard? Did I, or do I really want to? Time and speed are such important factors now. We're all rushing toward some distant goal. Even the bus driver, whose goal appears to be the end of the line where he can turn about and rush back, can scarcely wait for me to get on board before he sends me on a dead run down the aisle toward a seat. There is a good deal to be said for the plodding of the agricultural age before high-tech gave us high tension. We have lost a lot of the exciting mystery of faraway places. The slow boat and train have given way to the fast jet that has shrunk our world and left us little to wonder about. Are we getting too blasé? Too bored? I face my microwave dinner with little appetite, missing the stimulation of delectable cooking orders. The stereo I buy on sale is obsolete by the time it is delivered, and my warranty won't help much. New parts are unobtainable. In the Information Society, quote, I read, the game is people interacting with other people. Rather, it seems to be people interacting with machines. I feel no heady pleasure when I reach out and touch a word processor, and hugging a computer ranks with the joy of a slipped disc. If I lay the telephone receiver down, a metallic voice says menacingly, replace your telephone receiver now. Did it say that last night? My car states in superior tones its requirement of gasoline, oil, and other sundries. A disembodied voice at the supermarket checkout tells the world that I have purchased broccoli for 99 cents, paid $2, and received change of $1.01. The non-vocal devices have screens on which to flash nasty little messages like error, error, error. My bank urges me to make use of their Instabank service. Even the cheerful voice of a teller telling me my account is overdrawn would be preferable to the cold response of Instabank. If I wanted to communicate with man-made rather than man, I could stay home and chat at my vacuum cleaner. The Information Society is an economic reality, quote, I feel a longing for other times when I hear warnings of how distant nations could wreck world economy by computer extraction of funds from our banks. Wrecking the economy should be left strictly to the politicians. Business and all banking transactions in our future will be done from computers in our homes, another blow to our economy. If we are not to carry money, what are the coin collectors going to collect? What shall we put in our children's piggy banks? What will happen to the manufacturers of piggy banks? As a weekly allowance for chores done, do we let the kids push 3 buttons for their reward? While our forests are being stripped of acres of trees to produce miles of computer printout paper, our health is being affected too by this new society. Among increasing physical complaints are computer fatigue, eye strain, and stress. No doubt nervous tension and blood pressure will be on the rise, because how can you vent your anger and get rid of your frustrations by shouting and shaking your fist at a mechanical contrivance that hasn't the decency to fight back? And will I wake some morning to find I have lost my voice completely from lack of use? I think of former school days and then look with a wary eye at the present educational system with its requirement of high levels of technological training. Machines will teach us how to use other machines. Computers do our mathematics for us. Hopefully something is teaching our kids to read so they can peruse the help wanted columns when there are not enough super jobs for the super skilled job seekers. Our language has undergone great changes also. Apart from the inclusion of a second official one, nouns and verbs have become interchangeable, and as well as computerese, which is a language unto itself, we are bombarded with words such as deploy, parameters, methodology, constitutionality, universality, and it says, who will let us forget that one? There must have been something about it, but I don't know what it was. Sexuality, sexism, racism, and liberation. Not the least, of course, is the change in our street language. Somehow, a defiant, oh yeah, or a sassy, says you, or yes, eh, seemed adequate before fuddle-duddle. Only when I overhear kids' conversation do I envy the ones who appear to go about with their ears wired permanently to their shirt pockets. When they eventually become unplugged from their walkabouts, how long do they retain that vacant look of complete remoteness? A trend is not destiny, quote, but how often do we see a trend change, except in the name and guise of further progress? If challenged, I will admit I am glad we don't use washboards now. I'm glad that nylon pantyhose were invented. I like cable vision, drip-dry shirts, and instant coffee, and I rejoice that there are electronic devices enabling the blind to hear colors. But I'm still nostalgic about so many things in the past that I remember with great affection. I remember when chips outside of woodsheds, wood piles, were on shoulders, and if knocked off, fell where they may. Hardware was bolts and hinges and hoes and shovels, etc. Kids played ball, not pinball machines in arcades. When you didn't feel a lesser mortal if your soap wasn't new improved and your headache tablets maximum strength, courtesy existed even among children, and we were nice to each other, at least in public, and friendly service was the rule, not the exception. I remember when terminal meant a bus station or a lingering illness. The threat of a trip to the moon was always good for a laugh. I felt free to direct my life as I chose until someone told me I should be liberated. I felt I was a person before I became a series of numbers. When a dish was something that you put your vegetables in or whistled at, apple grew on a tree. When I felt a certain pride of ownership of all parts of my body and transplants were done in the garden, and cabbage patches grew cabbages. When children were not exploited, when sex, pornography, abortion, divorce, not necessarily in that order, were not the prime topics in published material or on the screen. When taking a pill probably meant you wanted to avoid the flu. If society, public figures, politicians, neighbors, family incurred our wrath, we could write a letter to the Times or the Edmonton Journal, voice a complaint, shout a little, swear a little, and maybe bruise our knuckles on the stubborn chin occasionally, but we didn't find it necessary to destroy the lives of everyone who disagreed with us. As someone who found the transition from manual to electric typewriter a traumatic experience, it is not easy to applaud the Star Wars space program or the use of robots on automobile assembly lines. I always wondered why my Volare was a lemon, but I dread to think of the ultimate horror if, in the event of atomic warfare in Canada, the government would seek refuge in the Diefenbunker at Carp, Ontario. And then, when the nuclear dust had blown away, there would emerge to build our brave new world only a handful of politicians.